you can feel free to stop us about the ship or anything else. We hope that you enjoy this tea. I am Millicent Delia Lovett. I'm a first-class passenger and socialite. These are first-class guests. These are guests who were born in two means. These are not people who are working. Those are typically second class, and of course there's steerage. These are well-bred people from the United States primarily, but also from England, France, Germany. For tea today, we're having a black tea and 4 courses. The year was 1911. Woodrow Wilson was president, and on the throne was Edward VII. This would be known in England as the Edwardian era, and in the U.S. as the Gilded Age. The U.S. was beginning to see, it was becoming more of a superpower. It was beginning to see prosperity. While just decades earlier there had been very few people who made a lot of money globally, there were now over 1,400 millionaires in the United States. And they, of course, needed something to spend their money on, which is where the Titanic came from. It was an Irish ship. It was a Royal Mail ship. There were 5 mail clerks on board, 3 of which were American, 2 of which were British. And it was just, the idea was luxury. The idea was, it really represented the Gilded Age. It came to represent that excess. And it is excess that was not seen again in American history after World War I. The ship was the first luxury liner to have a swimming pool. The first class rooms, there was a beautiful walkway, stairs to the first class with a dome that you could look out above at the sky, but without having to get a nasty sea breeze of spray from the ocean in your face. There was a writing room that would later be used for teas. Meals were a 10-course affair. First class had their own china. You didn't have to share with the second class. They had their own. And steerage had their own too, and it was pretty much just white with a little logo stamped in the middle. For the first time, the world was truly becoming a global place. There were people of all nationalities on the Titanic. There were people coming from all over, from poor immigrants in steerage who spent all they had just to make a trip to the New World, to people who were, to aristocrats from England, from France. It definitely saw all kinds. First class was almost exclusively people who were born into money, though there were exceptions like Molly Brown, who definitely pressed social barriers. Which was common of the Edwardian age, as King Edward he would allow people to get close to him who traditionally would not be close to the crown. Traditionally, you had to be born into it. He had a lot of actors and actresses, just people he found really amusing. He liked to keep company of, well, amusing people, not just people who were born into it, and that was definitely very much seen in society, like with Molly Brown, who pressed many different social issues. Many of the social issues of the time were women's suffrage, both in England and the United States, that was gaining momentum. England would first have the right to vote, and then we would follow suit. Women of the time, there were more women physicians than at any other time. Of course, you did not need a college degree to be a physician, but that's another issue entirely. The ship itself was designed by Mr. Andrews, and it was actually designed very safely. There's 2 sets of hulls on it. It was designed so that any 3 of the 5 compartments that were waterproof, could hold water and it could still float, hit that iceberg sideways. They were supposed to turn starboard. He said turn starboard. They actually turned port. The crew was very new and inexperienced. If you wanted a job in the Titanic crew, one of the ways to get one was just to show up in the morning, and if they were short a person who'd overslept, they would hire you. They were not the most experienced people, and they hit right across the side of that iceberg. There was not a flaw in the steel as they thought for many years. It's just ships are not designed to hit icebergs. There was room on board for enough lifeboats for everyone. However, regulations at the time only required them to have room for half. And even though they had room for half, only two-thirds of the passengers still drowned. Most people in third class not even getting an excuse to escape. There were many heroes of the Titanic. This was exemplified by men who gave up their seats for women, definitely for women. Some women refused to leave their husbands' sides, and there was any casualties in first class were typically women who did not want to leave their families. And then there were people who just started throwing people on board. One third-class survivor, a woman who refused to get on board because there wasn't room for her whole family, just picked her up and threw her on a lifeboat, and she lived. There were definitely people who went back for survivors, although only 3 survivors were ever pulled out of the water. Molly Brown, definitely, she threatened to throw the crew overboard if they did not go back and look for survivors. And the women who rowed, women who were typically thought of as the fairer and weaker sex, typically they rowed the boats to come back and look for survivors, although it was pretty fruitless. The water was very cold. So we hope you've enjoyed this tea. And after this tea at 2 p.m. there will be the movie The Unsinkable Molly Brown in the basement of the Portage District Library, which will give you another more historical perspective on this tragic event. Thank you.